Well, welcome back. And I know that you are excited, just like I am excited to discuss all the fun that is conference championship weekend because we had a great weekend. And I'm going to do this video a little differently. That's kind of been the theme. I'm changing things up because I'm just not feeling trying to stick to a structured order for every single video. But for this, we'll do a somewhat structured order. So I want to talk about the number one performances first. And then after that, we will transition into some of the biggest storylines from conference championship weekend. So I won't be able to cover every single conference. That's just too much. But we will highlight some of the more important aspects. We'll look at the team battle because things are going to be shaping up now that we see what athletes can do when it comes to championship time. And I've been saying that all year. Things change when it is championship season. So we'll start with the men today, and I want to start with the two new NCAA record holders. We had two records broken this weekend, well, technically one. The other one was tied, and then we had a number two all time. So we had quite the weekend. So right away on the men's side, you have Kayinsola Ajayi of Auburn. And hmm, Auburn has really done a phenomenal job under Coach Lee Werperell of developing great short sprinters in a short amount of time. To get his program to this level, he had to recruit internationally, and he has recruited internationally very well. Kayinsola of Ajayi of Auburn is by way of Nigeria and who's having an incredible couple of years. I want to say really post COVID, we've seen Nigerian athletes and just explode to a whole new level. And he's to me probably the most fluid short sprinter I think of the entire group. I think Father Ash is probably the best when healthy, and I think he's now knocking on his door. He clocked a 6.45 to win the SEC title in what was a loaded field. And what will be an even more loaded field come national time because there will be five men that can run, five or six, I believe, that can run sub 6.5. We're now in that era. For a long time, if you just ran sub 6.6, you were going to the national meet. That's not the case now. We have an entire group of people who run 6.58 and 6.59 who will not be competing. That's how tough the field has gotten. And he's just kind of led what is a strong Auburn group. He ties Christian Coleman's NCAA record of 6.45. The irony is the record is now jointly shared by two historic SEC programs. I'm looking forward to seeing if he can lower that time. He may not need to. It's going to be difficult for anyone to beat him. He has such a smooth takeoff. If you watched his video on social media or you've seen the race live like I did, he got out of the blocks and just he didn't solely rely on power. He had this great takeoff, an excellent drive phase, and it was so smooth and light. Just excellent with his legs, getting the full extension, knees were up, driving really hard, but making it look effortless. What an impressive, incredible run from him. And I just think if he can translate this to outdoors, we may be seeing another sub 9.9 in the NCAA. I think he's that talented. The other NCAA record, and this one is outright, is from Ryan Johnson. And this is Ryan Johnson of Iowa, probably one of the greatest throwers we've seen in a while come out of the Big Ten. And that's saying something because the Big Ten has historically been pretty strong with their throwers. But he may be one of the best. In the weight throw, he launched a throw of 84 feet, 2.25 inches, or 25.66 meters. In what is a very tough Big Ten, he made it look easy. He had several impressive throws throughout the weekend. He's had an impressive year. He's led from the beginning of the indoor season effectively in December, not January, when we all sort of recognize it's the start of the year because it's the official start of 2026. The actual season began early December, and he's led the NCAA since then. There is always those shock moments where someone could surprise, and it normally happens during this season. The surprise here was that Ryan Johnson went up against great competition and did not fold. 84 feet is impressive. New NCAA record, and I look forward to seeing how that translates outdoors. I want to know what he's going to do. I think this young man is very talented, and he's been impressive all year long. How long are you going to be this dominant? That's my question. Next event we'll talk about is the 200, and we'll go to Garrett Kaalund of USC, another Big Ten athlete. And the expanded Big Ten is went from being a competitive conference to an extremely competitive conference. Looking at the data from this weekend, I think, we obviously have the Big Four conferences, the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Big 12. I felt that the SEC and the Big Ten, top to bottom, kind of had the strongest performances. There were moments where the Big 12 looked at times stronger than the Big Ten, but that was maybe in just one or two events. Overall, the Big Ten, impressive weekend, and Garrett Kaalund scorched that track in Indianapolis, 20.06, the number two time all time. And he is so close to breaking the NCAA record of 2002 set by Eli Hall all those years ago. And when he did it, we were impressed when he did it. Unfortunately, his professional career hasn't matched that performance because of an injury. But I think Garrett Kaalund is being coached very well by that staff under Coach Quincy Watts there at USC. Could we see our first American run sub 20 indoors? Only one other person, the great Frankie Fredericks, has done that. His 19.9 has sat since the 90s. We are now in late 2020. That's how long it's been sitting there. Um, could Garrett be the one to join him? The field is really strong, but he, to me, seems a clear step ahead. I'm hoping, to the track guys that he gets a great lane assignment to come indoor championships once the heat sheets are out. Because I want to see him get a good lane in the final because I think he is the strongest chance of joining that 19.9 indoor crew, or I shouldn't say crew, indoor legend mark. And this is the fastest someone has ran in February that's American. Um, we'll see. But man, is he having a year. I think we thought his teammates in the 60 were going to take it. It's really kind of been him. He's been the MVP all year long. Now, moving to the 60 hurdles, which had an incredible weekend. The 60 hurdles went from being really competitive to ultra competitive. All these events changed this weekend. Bradley Franklin out of Sanford University, and I'm not saying Stanford, I'm saying Sanford. And his story is a bit interesting because he was a highly touted recruit coming out of high school. And here he is in college at a smaller university doing what we expected him to do. He runs a 7.41 in the 60-meter hurdles. He also runs a 6.63 in the 60-meter dash to win both events in his conference. And what was a part of an incredible doubles weekend for a lot of hurdlers, showing their incredible speed. But he was the class of the field, 7.41. That's a nice little step over Jacoby Tharp. And I'm going to go on a ledge and say, y'all, I know that Jacoby is my number one and he's going to remain that way. Until someone beats Jacoby Tharp, he's still my number one. But I'm going to give Bradley Franklin his due. He is the new NCAA leader in the clubhouse in a field of phenomenal talent. I think we can also not forget to mention Malachi Snow of Texas Tech, who won the Big 12 in the 60 and the 60 hurdles. He ran 6.4 and 7.4. Um, he doesn't have the technique that Bradley Franklin has or Jacoby Tharp, but if Malachi Snow, and I've said this multiple times, if he can just get his technique together, he really is the modern day Terrence Trammell. The last time we seen an athlete with that level of speed as a hurdler was Terrence Trammell. His times are actually faster than the great year of Grant Holloway. So we got to talk about Malachi Snow later, but we're going to give Bradley Franklin his flowers. And I wonder if, he considers transferring or if he goes pro at the end of the season. Because of NIL, athletes aren't necessarily pushed to go pro like they were before. And this is a non world championship year. This is not an Olympic year. This is the new event, the ultimate. And we'll see how that goes. But Bradley Franklin, you have certainly impressed me, and I'm sure a host of others with a 7.41. And now I want to give credence to a team that led the league and ran the number three time all time in the DMR, but they did it during DMR weekend and they were the only number one performance, so I didn't do a video. So I want to give them their flowers here, and that's the University of Michigan. The Michigan Wolverines being coached by Michigan legend Kelvin Sullivan. He has really got the program going, and this proves it. 9:14.80. You heard me. 9 minutes, point 14 seconds. Well, 9 minutes, 14.8 seconds. Just, I looked at that time and thought, you got to be kidding me. 9:14? What? I didn't think this Michigan, and this is a good group. And so what I'm about to say is not blasphemous. I didn't think they had a sub 920 in them. I thought if they do, and they qualify, it'll happen at the championship meet. I was not expecting for them to lead the NCAA. And, Oregon had that crash out at University of Arkansas where they got DQ'd. So they sent another team the very next day to Boston who runs a 9:14.88. But Michigan ran that 9:14.8. Kind of, you know, it was really smooth. They ran against good competition, but I watched them thinking they're going to lower that time. They're going to lower that time. This is a really good group. And I'm more convinced of it now because they ran up against Oregon. And granted, it was different circumstances because this was not Oregon's A team, but it wasn't Michigan's either. And at the Big Ten championship, they came away with the gold. So I'm curious to see what Michigan does. Are we under NCAA watch, NCAA record watch? I think we are. Our next event, we'll get to the field. We'll talk with a Georgia high jumper, uh, Kimani Jack. And things going so well for Coach Carol Smith Gilbert. It's like almost every other event, she's got somebody in the top five or leading the country, whether it's men or women. But they've been particularly good in the high jump. And this goes back to their time with Petros and now to their time with Coach Carol Smith Gilbert. And you have Kimani Jack, who takes the NCAA lead, winning the SEC title, 7 feet 5, 3.25 inches, or 2.28 meters. He's having an impressive freshman year, and in a year where we were expecting some freshmen to compete at a higher level. Some of them are struggling to make a mark, or they are making a mark and realizing how difficult Division 1 is. And I think some of us are having, realistic expectations. Later, hindsight, we're saying, oh wait, this is Division 1 NCAA. A lot of these freshmen aren't going to be able to compete just yet. Kamani Jack can, leading the NCAA 7.5, 3.25. And this is an open event. We haven't seen the big 7.6, the big 7.7, and that may be coming for Kimani even this year. We're not going to put it past him this year because he's jumping like that now. What else has he got in those legs? And another jumper that I think we can't ignore is Jonathan Seremes of Texas Tech. We know he transferred from Missouri, and this is another example of the transfer portal working for an athlete. He retakes the NCAA lead in the triple jump, 55 feet, 7, 3.25 inches, or 16.96 meters. An impressive, impressive jump. He had a pretty good weekend for Texas Tech, which had an incredible weekend in the triple jump. Both men and women walked away victors, and the women looked so deep in the triple jump. I'm waiting for the men to get back to that depth that they had in the jumps. That's just going to come with recruiting and less injuries, and we know that's going to happen with Texas Tech. They've taken really good care of that program in regards to financially providing them with a five-star facility, which gets to host the Big 12 championships almost every year. Um, and he was a part of that great team performance by Texas Tech. Now, moving to the women's side, we're going to look right at the 60-meter dash, and we had some impressive marks. We'll start with the youngest in the 60. That's Alicia Burnett. of Ole Miss. And Coach Hollinger, who was coaching at Ole Miss, who coached those sprinters there at Ole Miss for a short amount of time, left and moved to coach at University of Florida, which is having a great resurgence since his returning because he did you know serve as an assistant early on under Coach Holloway. Now that he's back as a full time assistant, it looks like the Florida Sprinters are returning back to the way they were. But clearly, the coaching staff at Ole Miss was like, "We got it," and they do. Alicia Burnett, a freshman, one of the freshmen that's actually putting up big marks, clocks a 7:08 in the 60-meter dash. 7:08 against a crazy impressive field where Jamesia Ford didn't even make the finals running a 7.24 in the 60. 7.24 didn't get you to the finals. That's because so many were running 7.1 and low 7.2. And then you had the winner running 7.08. And then likewise, at the, I believe it's the Sky West or Big West Conference, Victoria Cameron of Tarleton State, which is in the Texas A&M University system, she also clocked 7:08. I see online people calling her the White Sha'Carri. Let her be her own person. She also has uh, soccer background, and I'm also going to go out on a limb and say we're not comparing nobody to my girl Sha'Carri yet until they can run 10.65. So unless you're running better than 10.65, nobody is Sha'Carri. Just saying. But hats off to young Victoria Cameron, a talented junior and a soccer player no less. 7:08. And then we moved to the 200, and then now we're back with another Georgia athlete, Adaejah Hodge. So you can't go away from these Georgia runners. Adaejah Hodge took the NCAA lead, breaking her own personal best that she set indoors as a high schooler, clocking 22:32. This is stunning. Is she gonna break the NCAA record indoors? We'll see. But Adaejah Hodge is having quite the year coming back after she spent last year dealing with injuries and other issues as a freshman. Here she is as a redshirt freshman doing the things we just knew she was capable of. 22:32 in the 200, which is clearly her best event. A huge bright spot on what was, I think, a mixed bag for the Georgia sprinters. I don't think they dominated as much as they thought they would. I think reality kind of smacked everybody that it's still the SEC, and a lot of these coaches know how to coach. Uh, but she, to me, is the class of the Georgia team and the class of the SEC because she ran right past Jamesia Ford that last 50 meters coming off that bank. And moving to the distance, and this is where the conversion works in the athlete's favor. We'll go to the mile and we'll talk about Billah Jepkirui of Oklahoma State. Yes, Oklahoma State doesn't just have a good men's program, it also has a good women's program. And Billah Jepkirui also defeated Jane Hendrigan of BYU in the mile. She clocked a 4:23.4, but because of the elevation that the track is at, it lowers her time because it gets converted to 4:20.34, which gives her the NCAA lead in what is becoming a very deep mile. And I want to give myself a little credit to even though I said it was an open event, I said this is going to be a good year for the mile. And I'm feeling myself a little bit here because I was correct. It has been an incredible year for the women's mile and for the men's mile, if we're being fair. But Billa really outdid Jane. I really expected for Jane to come away with multiple goals, and she still had a good weekend. But Billa was the class of the field. She not only won the mile, she also won the 1,000. So she was a huge 20 points for the Oklahoma State Cowboys or Cowgirls in this situation. Hats off to her. I'm curious to see what she does when it comes to choosing her event for the championship meet. I'm pretty sure it should be the mile, but you never know. And then our final event that we'll talk about on the women's side in regards to number one marks, we'll talk about the pentathlon, and that's Megan Humphreys of Illinois. And I also want to give hats off to Illinois head coach Petros Kyprianou, because, dude, I've been hyping you up all year and last year, and you have backed me up every time. And this week, you went even further than I thought you could as a coach. Like, are we seeing how dominant they are in the field? They're going to be sending a group of long jumpers, a group of high jumpers, a group of multi event athletes. They could potentially win the NCAA indoor title without stepping foot on a track. And that's, a full stop moment. That's a gotcha moment because of how well they did this weekend. And the outdoor champion in the heptathlon won the indoor pentathlon. That's Megan Humphreys, 4,459 points. And we thought it was going to be her teammate because her teammate came away with two victories, but Megan was strong in every event. She was either top three or in one event, she was top 10. And I believe that was the shot put. But she was either top three in most of the events, and then she won the 800. She only had one victory, individual victory in the 5 event pentathlon, but she did so well in her other events that she was able to outscore her teammate. Man, oh man, did she have a strong meet. And I'm looking forward to the pentathlon come indoor championship because this is a really deep field and we don't know who's number one yet. It keeps changing. We've changed the number one ranking in this event about 4 or 5 times this year. And each time it changes, the performances get even more impressive because it's not just they're good at one event. These athletes have truly learned to master the multi-event where you can't just have, okay, I got 7 events, let me just be good at 3 and hold pat for 4. It's now let me be good at 5 or 6 and I'm going to be just okay at 1, which is better than holding pat. And Megan Humphreys gives me that. She's a big time performer. She has shown up at the Big Ten championships every time she's been expected to. And so hats off to her, hats off to her teammates at Illinois and to the coach. Because Illinois looks to be on a whole new level. And now I want to transition and, if this is getting too long for you, I know. Just hold on, just a few more topics. I want to talk about a few storylines that we have to talk about that don't deal with number one marks. And one of the first storylines I want to talk about is Antoinette Nabwe not winning the weight throw in the Big Ten. Stunningly, she lost to Megan Humphreys' teammate. So, yes, Petros even has throwers, and he has two really good ones in the weight throw. Yes, I promise you, their number one ranking was, I now am convinced, they earned that. I do believe in Georgia, but Illinois is going to be hard to beat come championship meet because they know how to show up. But I was a little disappointed in Antoinette because initially she was not my pick for indoor weight throw champion. I said it was Giovanna Meeks, and I even, was very confident enough in my preview video where I said I don't think she's really going to have any competition. And one of you replied in the comments was like, I don't know about that. I think it was all in the game, but I don't know. You said that you was like, I don't know about that. I wouldn't say that she has no comp, and I was proven wrong very quickly because Antoinette has held this lead on the NCAA. She still has it majority of the year, but to lose the Big Ten championship, not show up at a Big Ten championship meeting in the postseason, to me is always a slightly alarming because I'm like, you're in a competitive conference. It only gets more competitive at the national level. You can only be dominant during the regular season. So I was a little disappointed. Her finishing second. Still, hats off to her. She's having a great season. Let's hope for her to rebound come NCAA championship time. Then we're going to talk about someone who won. Samuel Ogaze of Alabama, another Nigerian athlete who had an incredible indoor season, 44.72 in the 400. He's kind of been the favorite, I think, since last outdoor season. And shame on me for not mentioning him during my preview. I just, I hate to say it, but he kind of sometimes goes unnoticed because it's as if we kind of ignore him because we're like, we got to see. Or we're just not paying enough attention to him because someone else already runs an incredible time at the beginning of the year and we're all on them. And that person in this situation was Jonathan Sims. We were so on Jonathan Sims, and I was. We forgot Samuel Ogaze. And when they finally met, Ogaze came away. He's the SEC champion. So he's going to get interesting. Even though this is a great field, because I believe there are two athletes who run sub 45 and we're not even at the indoor championships yet. What happens next weekend? Well, the following weekend, rather. It's the second week of March. What happens during that weekend Both have had time to not only rest but work out their kinks and to strategize. And they're going to be going up against people they haven't seen all year. It's going to get interesting. But I think Samuel Ghazi has earned our respect. And even though he's not the number one time, because he beat the person with the number one time, it's fair to say that he is the favorite. Um, Again, I want to highlight Malachi Snow. Performances like that always make me just go, ha. Because I think of all the really star hurdlers that are in NCAA right now, and there's so many that run 6'4". And there's, oh, excuse me, only so many that run a 6'4" in the 60-meter dash. He's one of only two athletes to ever do that. It's him and Terrence Trammell. That I'm like, if he can just get that technique, he could really run a 6'2", a 7'2" or a 7'3" in the 60 hurdles. His speed is so good. Can we just get him to get that technique? Because if that technique comes, there's nobody in this field, and I say that as someone who is on the Jacoby Tharp bandwagon. I don't think there's anybody in this field that's going to stop him. Just get his technique down, he wins. And it's similar of story of Terrence Trammell. He did receive a lot of criticism, and I remember because I was a young fan of Terrence Trammell, if he could just get his technique to match his speed. And you would look at him and you would notice that, okay, he's almost there. If he can get that technique to match his speed, he's going to win the Olympic gold. And he unfortunately never did. So that always made people go, it's more than just speed when it comes to hurdlers. You got to have the technique. And I think that Malachi Snow is eventually going to get there. But for my money, I'm still riding with Jacoby Tharp, even though this field makes me nervous. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the conference championship weekend as a whole. We're always reminded around this time who's real and who's not. We saw a lot of athletes that we've been hyping up or that we've had great expectations for fold this weekend. Some never even really showing up. Some not even making it to the finals in their event. Some getting upset in the finals of their event by someone younger and who's more hungry. Um, a lot has been exposed, and I feel that my rankings video received a little bit of vindication. Even though, I didn't really get a lot of pushback, there were some who questioned my opinions on Illinois. And so I humbly say, you know what, in that instance where I said I didn't really see them as number one, it's kind of hard when you're going to be sending a group of the top athletes in the country in a multitude of events. I believe it's like 5 or 6 field events where they're going to be sending multiple athletes. And when I say multiple, I'm talking about more than two in most instances. So I will admit I was incorrect when it came to Illinois. On the men's side, I actually am kind of stunned because I was actually impressed with Florida rallying. I was disappointed with their performance in the 60 and even in the 2. I know that some of them have been injured and it's been a slow go of things, but I was happy to see Wanya McCoy get things back in the 200. Where I was disappointed also, not just, Florida, I was actually surprised to see, um, and this is in regards to Oregon. I was actually stunned. They did not dominate the distance events like I thought they would. And I'm talking about the Oregon men. I think the event that I walked away looking like they're good, but there's been a gap closed on them within the conference, and that was the mile. Um, in the three big teams in the conference in the mile were Michigan, Oregon, and Washington. And in that event, Michigan looked to be the strongest. Oregon had a great, showing, of course, but I just feel like part of their invincibility cloak, along with Washington's for that matter, took a little bit of a hit. Yes, they won the team title, but I was like, do they have enough to win a national title? I'm actually more convinced now that they don't. I was kind of holding out hope to see, do they have enough bodies in enough multitude of events to win the title? I'm not so sure yet. And I'm looking more like no, They don't. But so much happened. Thank you for listening and supporting me. I look forward to the rest of the season. There will be a preview video once we get the actual list of who's competing in what. We're also going to have a video following uh, the preview. We'll talk about the transfers. And I also want to talk about some of the changes in coaching and has it been a benefit to those programs? Because there was a lot of changes in coaching that happened this past off season, and some of it has borne a lot of fruit, and some of it has been problematic. So we'll see. But please like, share, comment, and subscribe. I will be talking to you soon when we have our preview video for what should be an outstanding NCAA championship. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.